Hello, and in this demo, I'm going to show you what the K2 admin UI looks like and then how to configure K2 in a site similar to what we've done over in the Nintex side. So in this case, we're sitting on the K2 server. If we go in and we look, we'll see there's a whole K2 Black Pearl section. A lot of different links in here. The one that we're looking for here is the K2 Black Pearl workspace. If we open that up, it's going to open up in the new Edge browser, which not really that big of a fan on, so we'll just close that. Open up in IE, and so then we're going to see this is what it is. It's just web-based UI. We have reports, notifications, management, security, user settings. This is the reports area where you could actually go and create some new reports if you wanted to via the report designer. And so here you'd be able to browse through any reports that have already been created, or you can come down and create your own report based on any of the workflow data that's stored in K2. Notifications, any type of notifications you might want to build out in here. The real meat of what you'd want to look at for K2 would be on the management console side. So you see your smart objects, library, the server, smart box roles, users, license management workspace. Expand this out, we'll see that here's all the out-of-box smart objects. And so then we could select the top node here. We can actually go and add our own smart objects in here. And there's a whole lot of different ones you could select from. We'll just close that. So a lot of different things in here. This is probably one of the more powerful notions that K2 has, is in terms of being able to create your own smart objects. So we'll just close that out. Different plugins, templates you might want to have. The server itself, the processes, users, different data, security for Smartbox. Just kind of expand all these out so you can see them. Great. And in terms of security, going in the workspace permissions, if I want to add in people to be able to see these nodes and the data that's in them, I could add people. And then user settings. So pretty straightforward. And a lot of the core of what you would end up doing in terms of admin would be here in the management console. Very similar to how it used to be back in some of the previous versions of K2. Now, that all being said, back on here, there's a few other things that I'll end up going through and looking at, but it's later on for like K2 Studio and the K2 Designer. We'll take a look at those. But the server's up and running. It's good. It's waiting for requests. Now we have to go and configure SharePoint to actually talk to this K2 server. So here we are, moved over to the SharePoint box. Now what's going to happen is there's an app for K2 that needs to be installed, and so I'm here on an app catalog site, and I want to actually go and add a new document, and so that would require you to go and download the latest app file for K2. So there it is, K2 for SharePoint. Go ahead and open this up. We'll upload this into the app catalog. Okay, and then get their basic form to fill out any other properties that we might want to do. In this case, we'll just go ahead and save it. And now we have the K2 for SharePoint app is there. Now if we jump over to our intranet, we'll go over site contents, and we'll say let's add an app from our organization. We're going to see here's the K2 Black Pearl for SharePoint, so go ahead and select that. What you're going to end up seeing in some cases is that you're going to have to add permissions for the app. This is what this means. This particular app is not known in this site, so I'm going to go do that, and then I'll be able to click on it again. Okay, so this, in order to register the app, jump over here. You would just go to Layouts 15 App Reg New, type in the app ID. Doesn't really matter what the app secret is, as long as you get the app ID principal registered. You could also do this through PowerShell. Once that's done, come back over here, K2 Black Pearl. Now it actually pops up, asks me, do we want to trust it? We say sure. Let's do it. Now it's going to go download the app from the app catalog and get it installed. Okay, so now it's been downloaded, it's installed. We'll go ahead and click on it. Now this is something that you got to be real careful with. If you don't trust the certificate, it can cause issues with the actual apps. So I get the username password in there, and we'll get this app to fire up. Now of course this means that because this is using the add-in model, you've got to have all your apps, your app domain set up, your DNS configured, the port 80 web app configured for your SharePoint, accepting dynamic entries into the SharePoint box. So requires quite a bit of extra setup. Most likely you're already going to be doing apps, so probably not that big of a deal, but it is quite a bit extra setup. Once the app's configured here, we now have to go and put the URL to the K2 service that we've set up earlier in the install. So then hopefully I typed this in right. I put it on port 81. Also put it on 443, but actually take the S off. Yep. So there we go. Can't do the non-SSL, so luckily it should be on there. Again, that was a trust issue, so once I clicked through, it was able to validate the URL to port 443. So one of the other things I noticed about the K2 stuff is IE doesn't tend to be very happy with a lot of the redirects that are happening with the STS on the back end, and so Chrome tends to be a little bit better to use in terms of some of these dialogues and the redirects, and it's a little more forgiving, or at least able to handle some of these redirects to get you where you need to go to actually configure the K2 apps. So in this case, everything's working. This is something similar. Well, spoke too soon. Or maybe that was just a quick little error there. What'll end up happening, all these should end up going to green at some point. And this guy may be a little unhappy, but these will all go to green, and then that means that the app itself will end up being configured to be able to talk to the K2 server. So this error, what's going on here is, even though I've gone and uploaded the K2 for SharePoint app to the app catalog, there's a lot of other things that have to happen in order for this app to be able to do what it needs to do, and all of that is done via what's called the app deployment. You could script it, but it's probably easier just to run this app deployment. So I fired this off. It's now got us to this point. It's going to analyze. It's going to look for app catalogs. So we'll go and click next. It's done its thing. Ends up that was not the right thing to do. So end up hitting cancel there. So we're going to go put the URL to our K2 server that we used earlier. Great. It's going to now run through, look for app catalogs, user profile, those types of things, and very similar to the previous installers. And it's telling us that our current user is not the greatest user, to be using this as. So ideally we'd want to go and make sure that we've run us either farm account or admin account that has access to all of these particular things. And so what I've done is actually logged back in as an account that has access to all of these things. It's refreshing. And so we'll see mostly green check marks, just a couple things around some services not actually running on all the servers. So we should be okay with that. Clicking on next, it's going to show me any app catalogs that we have. Click again. It's going to deploy our app for us, which is very similar to what I did in terms of actually uploading that app file. So now at this point, it's going to go ahead and set up the server-to-server S2S trust, high trust between the SharePoint environment and the K2 server, which is the part that I hadn't really gone through for this environment for my demo. So moving on, setup's complete. So do finish, and we're going to want to go back in and try to redo the app again. So what I did is I switched over to a Chrome browser on another server, and we see here it's running through. We've got 4 green check marks now, and this 5th one goes green, so everything is configured for this app in terms of registration of the app to the back end, K2. So then we'll go ahead and click a finish. And so as this is loading, big difference is, the K2 server sitting on its own server. It's a provider hosted app model with the S2S high trust versus Nintex, where everything is running on the SharePoint server via the SharePoint solutions and features. So then now that the app's installed and connected to K2, now we have this kind of admin page, the settings page for the app itself. It allows us to go in and look at different things here. We could fire the registration wizard again if we wanted to. We can look at the reports, Smart Objects Designer in terms of artifacts. And then over on the permissions part, one of the things we got to do is do the synchronized groups to make sure that we're actually going to get the permissions to come over. And so that's going to, see if we can get the synchronize to work here. Good, great, all golden. So this is all this really does on this side. So now they give you some videos that you could watch, of course, but we want to go back over to the site. And what we're going to see, kind of similar to this graphic they have shown up here, is that we're going to have a new set of ribbon icons that allows us to build the apps and build reports. And so there are no features to activate, like on the Nintex side. Nothing at the site collection or at the site level. So then we'll go in here, we'll go to site contents, and we'll just find, look at this documents library, and up in the ribbon we'll now see here's the application and report. So we'll click on application. It's going to load the K2 app, and from here, this is normally a synchronization issue when the groups don't come over, but we'll jump back over and we'll make sure we add ourselves to this group just in case. So we'll go to our site settings. We're going to do site permissions. Just going to make sure here, owners, this account, it's good. And then the other thing, we go over to K2 for Black Pearl. We want to look at configure K2 permissions and just verify the solution designers, solution participants. Yep, members, owners, great. Go ahead and click OK. And we'll just synchronize this one more time. Perfect. So now let's go back into our documents. And we now have the ability to create a K2 application. As soon as it loads anyway. So perfect. So we're going to go and create a new application. So this is where we get to select what we want to do. So we can do smart objects, we can do forms, workflow, reports. So we'll just go ahead and do workflow. So this is going to allow us to create a workflow, give it the name, set our events up in here. But this is something we'll look at later in terms of how we do the configuration, how we do the actual creation of workflows. But in terms of having K2 configured, that's how we did it. Is getting the S2S configuration set up, and then getting the app moved in the app catalog, and then adding the app, and then registering the app with the backend, synchronizing our groups, and then we're able to start creating K2 workflows and forms.